over the past like 2 years, it's been growing the topic of digital transformation, data analytics, and I feel like last year was a time where I really set my goal to actually go forward with it and see how I can pivot my career to have more of a innovative and creative approach to maybe like what's traditionally thought of as or expected of accounting. And so during my research, when I was trying to apply for jobs, I had seen Alteryx in the job descriptions and I had no idea what it was. I thought it was just another accounting software that I needed to know. So I wrote it down and I figured, okay, I'm going to try to learn this before I graduate. And I'm sure I'll, have more marketability when I go into the job market. Just very casual outlook. But it wasn't until I actually did more research and I started talking to accountants in the field that I really began to see the potential that Alteryx has, not just for, your career, but as a whole, when you're, working with teams or, trying to work with the community, I see that that potential is kind of locked up and it's up to you to really go forward with it on your own.
Welcome to Alter Everything, a podcast about data science and analytics culture. Today, our guest is Nicholas Cajamarca, a Seneca College student based in Toronto studying accounting and finance, who created a club for his fellow students to learn what's capable with Alteryx.
When I was introduced to Alteryx, I think it was mostly because it kind of connected to my own personal habits. So like say I like to watch Formula One.
Uh-huh.
And actually I looked it up and the week I joined the Alteryx community is the week that Alteryx made their appearance with McLaren.
Yep.
And that weekend I was like, I have to learn Alteryx now. Like it was on my radar, but now I definitely want to be a part of this, right?
Our host for this episode, Annie Mays, joins from the Sparked team at Alteryx. She's focused on empowering learners at all levels to solve with data. You've probably heard Annie on a few episodes before. Annie and Nicholas will chat about what has motivated Nicholas to level up with Alteryx and how he's empowering his peers to do the same. Let's get started.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious, Nicholas, how much exposure have you had to data analytics in general prior to this year?
I actually had none. So as I said, like when I did my job research, I only had some sort of experience with Python, like meddling with it to see if it's something that I could go into. But in the terms of scopes, in the scope of like an accountant, I figured that actually Alteryx suits me better and allows me to leverage that knowledge that I do have. So yeah, I kind of went blind into it. And I can say that I actually had an unusual approach to data analytics.
Hmm.
So between the time that I first heard of Alteryx and when I actually started the enrollment and to get my certification, I had for about 6 months was working with Tableau. And so during that time, I went from data visualization to then data analytics and, automation processes with that. So that was kind of a unique approach, maybe not something typical you would think of like a data analyst or, other traditional computer science major would go through. But now I'm really learning the fundamentals and trying to, branch out even further by going into like, say, Python again or trying SQL, which I've, been doing on my own, just self-taught. So that's been my journey so far.
I love that approach of starting, maybe with another technology or another software that you have been exposed to and working backwards and seeing what else you can then do to manipulate data and numbers to get an output in something else that you're looking for. I think that's great. And as you're talking, Nicholas, I'm really thinking about how other students can learn from you about the career search part of your journey. Tell me a little bit about what motivated you to begin job searching in the way that you were. What kinds of things were you looking for, or what was your approach? I really think it can help other students start to think about how they might approach their job search as well.
So when it comes to the job search, you really try to have a long-term focus. And I think with Alteryx, it really helps you keep on that track because with Alteryx, you're looking at your data sets kind of in a broad overview, and it really allows you to pinpoint detail so that you can go into, right? And so when you're doing your job search, you need to kind of have the same attitude with it. You need to think in the broad term and the long-term scope of how you actually want to plan out your career. And I find that with the software itself, it kind of puts you in that like managerial role where you're
Hmm.
actually, you know, empowered with the capability of the tools. And so then you can actually, leverage that knowledge that you do have and actually make a more impact. And that part of it itself is more motivating than anything of just like, oh, I need another skill so I can have on my resume, right? It's really empowering, and that's the whole point that I think that Alteryx is really good at. That is my my main suggestion, that if you really want to feel empowered and you really want to have that unleashed potential, you should go with Alteryx.
I
Yeah.
love that, Nicholas. And in even listening to that, what you had just mentioned too about the empowerment and unleashing your potential, it's very clear to me that you have leveraged some of the resources that Alteryx provides to get you started. And I know you mentioned you didn't have any really little data analytics experience prior to finding out about Alteryx. Can you walk me through what your approach was to learning the software?
Yeah, so I think I tried to maintain like a structured format, and Alteryx like really was good at that. The online videos and all the documentation was so helpful. It really allowed you to not have any hiccups, when learning. And especially that especially is like prevalent with like other software where there's just like a million things you need to go through and you're just endlessly in tutorial. But, with the community that's on Alteryx, you have so many different sources. So I personally went through the training videos, but I also mainly focus on the use cases because the use cases really kind of changed my approach. Like as I mentioned, where I was like thinking like, okay, if I was a manager of company, how can I move my team forward? So the use cases, when paired with the training videos and the in software open examples, were incredibly helpful. And after I finished the training videos, I was like, okay, I actually want to, get to hands-on work, right? I'm sick of
Hmm.
learning at just about theory and not having any like actual ability to, do work with it. So I focused intensely on the weekly challenges. And that puts you on another level because you're really trying to like logically, but you're also trying to be creative. And when you pair those two together, you're like unstoppable, right? So you feel like you can do anything after you finish your first challenge, and that just
Hmm.
keeps you wanting to, top yourself even more, right? So that was my main approach. I think those three aspects, but I also I try to find everywhere that I think could help me. There's a section on Alteryx where you can ask questions and receive answers from like the local
Yes.
members. And that's really helpful also because you see that there's people out there that have a different approach to you, and being able to compare yourself and, see where you went wrong or see where you could do even better is what really gets you to the next level, right? And I think that was my approach that helped me succeed in getting my certification.
I love it. And just through the Spark program, I have the opportunity to hear from students relatively often about how they have onboarded themselves, how they have moved towards the learning journey to get towards course certification. You're actually the first one that I have talked to who has really celebrated the use cases. And I'm thinking of some of our users and listeners to this podcast. What might you say to them to encourage them to submit use cases?
I think use cases are a really good approach to step into somebody else's shoes. And, just like with life, you only learn by putting yourself out there in a new position, right? So, same thing with use cases. If you're submitting one, it doesn't have to be like this grand, life changing, different thing that's revolutionary, right? It can be as simple as something that's personal to you, but it's impactful, right? And when you have that personal connection, any use case will be good. It'll help the listeners to kind of tailor their own approach and expand
Hmm.
like the whole community knowledge. And I think that that knowledge base that's collected on Alteryx community is really well done. Like I
Hmm.
love it. I love going on there and just reading all the stories. Like it's really exciting to me.
That's awesome. And were you focusing mostly on the accounting specific use cases, or did you find value in other use cases?
Yeah, I think I initially focused on accounting. I was initially interested in like the PwC's tax automated system. That was like the main headline for me that really connected me because I, have experience in like the theory and tax in my program. And I also wanted to find like new ways to be efficient and like, have that new power myself. So I definitely focus on the business cases more, but I was also interested in seeing the Alteryx for good cases. And I especially heard more so about that on like the previous podcast I listened to. So that was, kind of different for me. Like I didn't think that Alteryx could be, for nonprofit and
Hmm.
for these cases that, weren't just business focused and corporate, exceeding value or, trying to promote growth, right? But it was in a different sense. And that was really interesting to me. I didn't overlook it. I definitely tried to consider on equal sides. And I think that's a good approach to have, right?
That's awesome. And that's exactly what we're trying to do through Sparked is really demonstrate to all types of learners in tax, in accounting, outside of accounting, across subject areas and different schools of business that Alteryx is applicable to their area of study, their major, and their future career. And in switching gears a little bit, I've had the opportunity to talk to you before. You have done some pretty amazing work in empowering other students on your campus. And I know our listeners would love to hear about it. Can you walk me through what you have done over the last couple months?
Yeah, so my club is called Business Intelligence Technologies, and I really wanted to have that broad scope where, I can take people's inputs and see what they want to learn, but also give them an opportunity to teach others if they want to. But I primarily focused on Alteryx, and my whole point of the club was to get people involved with the fundamentals of
Hmm.
data analytics so that they're better able to communicate with their teams in the future when they're working in organizations or they're going through their careers and they want to find a different way to enhance their potential. And that was the whole basis for the club, right? So when I actually started to do workshops after my club launch and general meetings and informing people about Alteryx, I just tried to get right into it by showing firsthand how fast it is to actually apply the tools in the program to your own personal data sets, right? So during my club's workshops, what I started to do is I grabbed like a really interesting data set from Kaggle and I would show them the step by step process of like, what could you do with this data set, right? I try to simulate an environment that puts them in a managerial role rather than just giving them assignment. Okay, you have this problem, solve A, B, C, and D, right? I try to make them think outside the box in a more creative approach and go, okay, you have this data set and you're this person, you run this organization. What can you do with it?
Hmm.
So they feel empowered, right? And when you give someone that decision making problem, they want to reflect their character on their own solution for that problem, right? So they try to
Right.
make it as best they can. And I find that that's the best way to do it, right? You show them firsthand, you empower them with the opportunity to actually make change, and then you demonstrate it of your actual application of Alteryx and see the output, right?
Hmm.
And then I also try to engage them with more data visualization, with that background, as I mentioned, that I think I have more experience in. And then you're really able to see just like the students light up in their face, go, oh yeah, like, we can do this. It's not out of the box, right? And one interesting problem case that I had implemented in my workshop is this data set that was all jumbled. It looked like there was no saving it. And when I presented it to students, I said, what could you do with this data set? And they're going to go, oh, this looks like a lost cause. I'm going home because there is no way to work with this data set. Like you can't do anything with it. And I show Alteryx. This is my favorite Alteryx tool, the regex function.
Hmm.
And then I apply some that, some transform, some selecting, sorting, and whatnot. And, in under 5 minutes, it goes from being scrambled eggs, mess of data, to a nice, 5 course meal where you have everything separated, you have all its potential. And then I visualize it and I show them all the hidden meaning that's behind that mess that they first saw. And, that interaction where you're showing it firsthand is really powerful. And I think, that was my kind of experience with the club and how I got people to more engage with it by putting them in the front seat of a decision maker rather than just like giving homework as you would expect like a professor would do or maybe a, corporate training, right? I really want to engage students.
That's amazing. And it actually sounds very similar to our user groups. And I know there is a Toronto based user group. What I think I'm hearing from you, Nicholas, is just the power of having this networked community in one location that can learn from each other and help empower each other to work towards course certification. I forgot to ask earlier on, are you course certified already?
Yes, I got course certified. I think it was August. And
Okay,
so it took me 3 months to get credit certified. That's because
awesome.
I was also doing school and work at the same time. I could have done it a little bit earlier, but
It's taken me a lot longer than 3 months, and I have yet to be course certified, but I'm working on it. So I definitely understand. And I guess on that, what advice do you have for other students who might be thinking of starting something similar on their campus?
I think they should just go for it. You can't second guess yourself because you don't learn anything by second guessing yourself, right? You need to just jump right into it and see all the feedback you can get. And with that, you can really tailor your approach to how your audience really wants to learn.
Hmm.
And yeah, they shouldn't wait. They should get right on it. Like if someone's listening to this today, I say get right into it. You cannot waste time with it because you only learn more by actually doing it, right? That's what I would say.
That is true. And I'm thinking too, as you're encouraging other students to get involved, how has all of this transformed how you are approaching your career search? I know all of this started with you kind of looking for jobs. You saw Alteryx as being a requirement for some, but how has this whole experience changed your approach to your future career?
Yeah, I think this really changes what you consider for your workplace because you can have all the personal attitude, but if you have a workplace that doesn't support it or is not really aligned with you, then you're not going to be able to be successful, right? So this has changed my attitude to really consider, okay, in this workplace culture, are they innovative? Are they,
Hmm.
adaptable? Do they appreciate the feedback that they get with how they're running things, right? And I understand there's like, there's a difference between like a student's perspective to like say a manager, right? When you're a manager, you're about like value maximization, and when you're a student, you're about career aspiration, right?
Hmm.
So I think that that difference between like attitude really comes into play here, and you really need to find an organization that is like congruent with your own values. And when it and like Alteryx is like a skill, if a skill you value and it's like a purpose that you think is important for organizational upskilling, that will really determine what you think is a organization that you really want to be a part of, right?
Right. And I know that our listeners come from organizations all over the world that are doing pretty innovative and amazing things. And I'm wondering, Nicholas, what would be something that you think our community members could do to help support you and other students who are actively learning Alteryx?
I think that community members who have that experience in the workplace, they need to transition that value of that experience that they have in working with teams and maybe attempt an opportunity to actually get students to simulate that environment. Because when you're a college student, you don't have any experience working in a team or, trying to do different things that, you would only encounter in business, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that, you know, people who already have the certification and they've already have the use cases, no matter how minor it is, they can actually simulate that environment with students.
Hmm.
And I think it'll be a really good approach to get more people involved and to change their attitude when it comes to data analytics, right? To see that it's open to everybody and that they really have that opportunity to kind of change their career projection, right?
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. And we recently launched, and Nicholas, I'm not even sure if you know about the Ultrix job board that we have launched in the Sparked space on the Ultrix community. But what we're hoping is that when learners obtain the skills that you're talking about, that you're helping empower other students with, that they can go to a active job board where our community members are actually posting roles that they know are open within their own organization so that they can start matching that early in career talent with the roles that need to be filled in their organizations. So that's something I can think of as just a listener, something to take a look at. And I know we can link to that job board in the show notes. But other than that, Nicholas, I'm curious from a career perspective, what's next for you? I know you have one more year of school, but what are you thinking for your own career?
So I think that until I graduate, I really want to just focus on this club and get as many people as involved. And so far, I have plans to actually get more professors involved. I think I had mentioned before that I actually showcased my club and potential of Alteryx to one of my accounting professors, and they loved it, right? And so I see that, professors actually want to have more classroom engagement, and they're looking for opportunities to kind of get that feedback. And so for now, I'm trying to see that opportunity to get more like educators involved, especially because I know that for accountants specifically, like for CPA, they have a requirement for data analytics learning components coming up, I think in
Right.
2022 or 2023. And so this is kind of an opportunity to merge like the innovative space that employers are going through and bring it to schools, right? So that's kind of the focus I want to have. But in terms of career focus, I really want to have the opportunity to use Alteryx and to create that team environment where I'm actually able to like lead others, because like I personally love doing it. I love giving presentations to others and trying to like uplift them and give them that new, focus in their career. So I can definitely see myself in a leadership role where
Mhm.
I am actually kind of teaching my own teams like a new software and new cool things and like trainings and stuff. Like I would love to have something like that, I think.
Amazing. Well, Nicholas, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit about your story, your journey, your aspirations. And I very much guarantee that we will have more listeners considering posting those use cases and thinking of ways that they can better connect with early in career professionals and even students looking for internships. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. Wow, that was like really, awesome to share my experience, because like everybody's talking about data analytics. No matter where you go, like in the news, you hear it in social media, and I'm really excited to like be a part of it, right? I really want to get people involved because it's such an exciting thing and a like new transition for people's careers. And yeah, I'm really hopeful for the future, right?
I am also very hopeful for the future, especially if you're a part of it, Nicholas. So thank you.
Thanks for listening. Our show notes are at community.alteryx.com/podcast, where you'll find links to join an Alteryx user group, check out use cases in your industry, or post your favorite workflow to the gallery. Catch you next time.